Stay tuned for a physical media review with your host, Grim Grindle.
Hello, I'm Grim Grindle. Happy October and welcome to a special Halloween edition of Physical Media Review. This episode will be looking at Bart Simpson's Treehouse of Horror, Volume 1 from 1995. This comic, having come out in 1995, means that there were 4 Treehouse of Horror Simpsons episodes already having aired on television. Because of this, in many respects, the comic reads a lot like the early Treehouse of Horror episodes, such as, just like the first 5 Treehouse episodes, it starts with a graveyard with some funny names. I use the word funny very loosely though, as it's more of an acknowledgement of their intent. These feel more like rejected jokes from the first 4 Treehouse graveyards, rather than successful attempts at humour. It was clever to put the names of the stories and their contributors on the front graves though. I just don't think the other graves are as funny as they are in the show. Also, like the Simpsons TV Treehouse of Horror Halloween specials, this comic consists of 3 separate Halloween stories. The first comic, Little Shop of Homers, is a parody of Little Shop of Horrors. However, as the name suggests, the plant is an offspring of Homer, rather than a combination of Butterworth and Venus Flytrap. Overall, this story is pretty funny, and is probably my favourite of the 3 stories in this comic. The second of the 3 comics is Call Me Homer, which is sort of a parody of Moby Dick. It's probably the weakest of the 3 comics, and feels sort of out of place. I mean, when you think of Moby Dick, you don't really think of Halloween, and when you think of Halloween, you don't really think of Moby Dick. This is only the first Bart Simpson's Treehouse of Horror comic, and there had only been 5 of the now 24 TV Halloween specials, so it's not like they should have been running out of ideas. It would have probably been more suiting to do a Jaws parody, which they actually did in a later Treehouse comic. It's not a bad story, it's just not a very Halloween story. And the third comic, Bart's People, involves Bart turning into a werecat. It's pretty funny, and I'm not sure if it's a direct parody of anything. I have admittedly not seen that many werewolf movies though, so I may just not know what it's a parody of. Overall, the art in this comic is very solid. However, this was before they started to really experiment with different art styles, like they do in the later Treehouse installments, so don't expect anything other than the on-model Simpson art. The comic itself is kid-friendly, of course, but you also get those few extra jokes that the more grown-up nerds will enjoy. Such as in Little Shop of Homers, you have Bart trying to use his X-ray glasses on a bikini magazine. Good old play, dude. My version of the comic is a reprint. You can tell because it has an ad for Futurama comic issue 23 in it, which didn't come out until 2006, so I'm not sure how many of the following features are similar to other versions of this comic, but you do get a few extra things on top of the 3 stories. The first of which is a cut-out dress-up Bart thing. I've never used it because I don't want to damage it and can't be bothered photocopying it, but I do appreciate the effort. There is also a fold-out poster in the middle, which I have not taken out for the same reason, plus my walls are already pretty heavily covered with the Backstreet Boys posters. It appears to be the front cover blown up though. And we get Bart Simpson's Guide to Low-Budget Costumes, which is a nice little extra. You also get 49 Things That Frightened Me as a Kid by Matt Groening at the very end of the comic.
It's graining!
Are you sure?
No.
It's an interesting read. Some of them are relatable, and some of them are kind of alarming. Overall, if you're a Simpsons fan and are looking for some light reading this Halloween, Bart Simpson's Treehouse of Horror Volume 1 is a pretty darn good purchase. Happy Halloween and thanks for watching. I have been and still am Grim Grindle.